Inflation in July went up 2.2% is the CPI inflation figure. That's up 0.2 percentage points. It was 2% in June. That, crucially, is the Bank of England's target. This is the first increase in inflation this year. Should we worry? Well, it's a small amount. A large part of this increase will be down to the statistical management base effects, as they're known, largely about energy prices. A year ago, the price cap for energy came down more than £1,000. This July, it came down about £100. When you compare those numbers, it means that inflation actually went up slightly, but the underlying, we'll look to see what the Office for National Statistics have said, the underlying effects will be the same.
Come in at 3.3.
Yeah, so core inflation, that's the one the Bank of England will be watching as it considers its interest rate decision for September for next month. We'll be watching closely. That's still high. Services inflation is still quite high. Goods inflation, expect will be continuing to fall. So I don't think there'll be any panic about this, but it just goes to show we are, as the Bank of England has been saying for quite a long time, we're not out of the woods in the inflationary cycle.
And just to give some context on the numbers again, on the headline number, so in May and in June it was 2.0%. Of course, the peak 18 months ago was over 11%, so significantly down from that. The expectation for this month, for July's data, was 2.3. So coming in at 2.2 was marginally better than expected. We're still very close to the Bank of England's forecast at 2%. I guess the question from here is, are we now expecting this trend to continue, i.e. a slight pickup such that that one rate cut that we just had may be few and far between, that we're not on a path for many rate cuts because inflation is ticking up again?
Absolutely. We saw interest rates rise like a staircase, up, month by month. They're not going to come down with anything like the same rapidity. Before these numbers, the expectation of a rate cut at the September meeting was 36%. That's what markets were pricing in. So twice as likely that rates would be held. I'm not convinced these figures change that. The bank has said that it expected inflation, having hit the 2% number, to tick up again. The ONS has confirmed what I was saying earlier. The underlying basis for this is what's happened to energy prices. They fell more last year than they did this year, but they are concerned that wage inflation, we saw wages running at 5.4%, if I've got my number from yesterday right. That is still running in real terms a little bit above inflation. And just the baked-in secondary effects, as the economists call them, the things we can't blame on the Ukraine war and energy prices that have come into this around wages, around price increases, will take longer to flush out. So we'll see what happens to the market thinks will happen to the chances of a cut in September. But it still feels likely perhaps one more this year, not a succession of, sadly for mortgage holders.